Hello, my name is Megan. Welcome to Group 3's presentation on rehearsing and memorizing study skills. First we'll go to Jamie, who will be covering rehearsing, then to Cassie, who will be discussing memorizing.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and I'm going to talk to you about rehearsing. You want to rehearse so you can be properly prepared for your presentation when you give it to an audience. Why would you want to rehearse? Well, it smooths out your presentation. It gives you a chance to kind of practice it and work out all the knots in it so that it goes more smoothly. And it verbalizes your thoughts and ideas, so when you are rehearsing, if you have an idea that you're working with for your presentation, you can try it out before you give the presentation. Finally, it boosts your confidence, so when you go up to give your presentation in front of your audience, you are more prepared, you've gone through it before, and now all you have to do is present it to other people. Some things to consider when you're rehearsing, and before you start to rehearse even, are your thought patterns. What are your thought patterns in preparing for the speech? What are they during the speech? Are you transitioning well? Do all of your ideas that you want to present in your presentation flow well together? You also want to consider your keywords. Instead of just plain out memorizing a presentation, it's good to have some words that highlight what important ideas there are and what you want to say. You want to consider what type of audience you are presenting it to and how to keep their interest level. And you want to focus on your composure. You want to make sure you're relaxed, and you want to make sure that you are speaking clear and that you're not presenting yourself in a way that is awkward to yourself and the audience. Before you start formally rehearsing, you want to go into pre-thinking. You want to think of the portions of your presentation and how they are going to flow together. You want to know what you're going to say and when you're going to say it. Some ideas, some tips for this sort of pre-thinking phase are jotting down some ideas on note cards and then kind of looking over them when you have a moment of free time. Also, it helps to imagine yourself giving the presentation, so that way you can kind of play scenarios in your head before you try them out. You want to memorize key parts of your speech. You want to memorize important quotations that you might be using, or if you're wording something really well, you want to memorize that wording. You also want to make sure you're not repeating anything. Make sure if you have a point that you want to get across, you are getting across in an efficient way, and you want to make sure you are comfortable with the content you are presenting. When you go to formally rehearse, you want to start rehearsing 2 days prior or more to your actual presentation. It might help to record yourself so that you can be your own critique. So you record yourself doing it. Or you might want to find an audience to rehearse in front of. And if you do that, either way, you want to make sure your visuals are running properly, and if there's any awkward things in your visuals, you want to sort them out. You want to time yourself too. You want to make sure that you're not speaking too fast or you're not taking too long. You want to watch for any cues you might have. So when you're transitioning from one thing to the next, if you show something that might make the transition easier for you, or the cue might remind you to go and talk about this or that. And you want to watch for detail. You want to make sure that you are giving a sufficient amount of information, but you're not overloading with information, or you're not using irrelevant information. Now, when you go to rehearse, you're going to want to critique yourself, or you're going to want the audience to critique you. So, whoever your critic is, you want them to watch for your enthusiasm. If you want to see if you are enthusiastic about the subject matter, and that you present yourself in a way that is appropriately excited about the presentation. You want to watch for your delivery. You want to make sure it's interesting. You want to watch the structure of your presentation, and if it flows well and if everything goes smooth. You want the content of your presentation to be accurate and valid, which you can back up with sources and all that good stuff. And you want to make sure that it keeps the interest of the audience. Now, if you're practicing with an audience, here are some things you can tell them to look out for. You can ask your audience to take notes on your presentation. You can ask them to come up with questions that they may have after the presentation. And you can ask them how well it was to understand you and whether you got your information across okay and well enough that they can comprehend it. So, with those things in mind, are you ready to rehearse your presentation? And do you have good rehearsal skills so that when you go to rehearse your presentation, you can do it efficiently and properly? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Blinke, and I did my topic on memorization. What this article from the Latin American Journal of Solids and Structure presents is the importance of memorization in our daily lives and where our history of shaping it comes from. The research stems from the early processes of Plato's work. It discusses the ability for us to restore, retain, and recall information. The purpose of this article is to show the hypothesis of ancient philosophers like that of Plato, discussed in depth in the paper, can be related to the current studies that we have conducted on the memorization process. How we categorize information and store it was interpreted in his own way of rules. The author attempts to relate the significance of adaptation. They seem to tell great deals of how we recall important information like it was done in the early tales of Plato's time. The main points of this article, first and foremost, Plato's representation of thinking and how not to confuse the impressions of right judgment with the act. This essentially means that we should be the most objective we can be when storing information. They also talk of the analogies made on how to retain information, which he states to be like wax, letting the imprint stick, which research has found is actually happening in the walls of the glial cells in the parietal lobe. He says organization must happen first before we can commit it to long-term memory, which he relates to telling in a tall tale. They talk of Plato's other work reinvented to better day analogies. However, the author ends with arguing that Plato was truly making analogies for how our cortex works to create and store more information. Others in college can use this article to benefit by understanding that they may learn of olden or seemingly outdated information. It will have more reliable meaning to today. Otherwise, it still wouldn't be around to this day. A relatable study skill is time management. This could be used by the time it takes to organize and access the information for better recalling. This is great for tests, studying, for classes, so we can understand the memorization process. We can better understand time management we need to use. So taking the time out to grab those index cards and organize the studying into smaller sections, maybe day by day or section by section, day by day. And you can actually take that to learn those organization skills and learn that information and store it in your long-term memory, not your short-term memory. So studying at the last minute all stores in that short-term memory. And you can use that, but it won't be around all the time. So that would be a great way to use it. Also a concept of helping fellow classmates memorize information would be to relate to words to maybe a story format. I found this useful on my own by watching Brain Games. I don't know if you've ever watched it on TV, but it's a really fascinating show. I remember the actor or the host asking a lady to remember a certain amount of words. It could be 10, it could be 15. I'm pretty sure it was like 6 words. And he gave an example such as taking monkey, blue, Chicago, and green avocados, and wait around for about 5 minutes and ask you that same question again, or the next day, whenever it is. But in this situation, he asked it about a couple minutes later. But he said to relate it to a story format. So if you go, the blue monkey ate green avocados in Chicago, you'll remember that it's blue, monkeys, green, Chicago. Green avocados in Chicago. And you can relate that process very easily by putting in a story format. Or if you get more organized with that idea, they showed examples of taking 50 words and making a huge storyline and taking those key words out and remembering all of them. That is stored in your memorization process. This could help kids learn to study for those complex words that they might not understand and relate it to a topic, and then it'll pop in their head and they'll understand what it is. I personally use that method for memorization, and it's helped me a lot through school. So I hope everybody enjoyed my video presentation and hope it uses all this all of the information I talked about can be used in your daily life. Thank you.
We learned through Jamie's presentation that rehearsing materials can better prepare you for your subject of study, and Cassie taught us the value of memorizing to help learn and retain subject materials. This concludes our presentation.